Enoch Powell has long been regarded as one of the most brilliant, outspoken, and controversial figures in British political life. He was born in Birmingham in 1912, and as a student at Cambridge University, he was the most distinguished classics scholar of his day. He was then professor of Greek at Sydney University in Australia, writing some half a dozen learned books on Greek authors before turning to politics at the end of World War II. In 1950, he became a Conservative Member of Parliament and was appointed Financial Secretary to the Treasury by the then Prime Minister Sir Anthony Eden, but he resigned this post on principle after a disagreement about government expenditure. Under Prime Minister Harold Macmillan, he was made a cabinet minister and therefore a member of the Queen's Privy Council, which gave him the title he holds for life, the Right Honourable Enoch Powell. He refused, however, to serve in the cabinet of the next Prime Minister, Sir Alec Douglas-Home, but accepted the position of party spokesman for defence when Edward Heath became Prime Minister. Heath, however, fired him from this post as a result of Powell's well-known and highly controversial speeches warning of the dangers of large numbers of Asian and black immigrants to Britain. In 1974, he resigned from the Conservative Party and refused to stand as a Member of Parliament in the general election because he could not accept Edward Heath's leadership over the issue of the European Economic Community, an organization to which he is fervently opposed. He even took the unprecedented step of advising electors that they should vote for the opposition Labour Party. He then joined the Unionist Party of Northern Ireland and was elected Member of Parliament for the constituency of South Down in Ulster, which he represents to this day. Apart from his political writings and his books on ancient Greece, he has written books on history and has published 3 books of original poetry. He is a devout Anglican Christian and is married with 2 daughters. I went to his house in Eaton Place, one of the most fashionable districts of London, and asked him the reasons for his deeply felt disapproval of Britain's being a member of the common market.
I believe in the national sovereignty of the United Kingdom under its own parliament, and I cannot believe that it is possible for that seriously to be given away or to be prejudiced or to be diluted. After all, the condition of our joining the EEC, and remember, it was a decision which was only taken by a majority of 8 in the House of Commons, in a House of some 600. When we came to that legislation, we found that it was necessary to renounce the exclusive right of Parliament to legislate and of the House of Commons to impose taxation, and the ultimate jurisdiction of the courts of the Crown. It was a more complete surrender of our independence than we should have had to make if Hitler had won the war.
Do you consider the British to be European?
We are European in culture, in education, and we are European politically, owing to the unfortunate fact that we are anchored as close to the continent as 21 miles at the shortest distance. This renders it unavoidable for us to be involved to some extent in the internal difficulties on the continent of Europe. But European in any other political sense, we are not. Our system of government, our system of law, our whole habits of self-government over the centuries distinguish us totally from our neighbours on the continent. This was expressed very well by our monarch Henry VIII, who, you remember, cut the Church of England adrift from the papacy when he announced that this realm of England is an empire, by which he meant not that we have colonies all over the world, because at that time we did not. He meant there are 2 imperia. One is the Roman Imperium on the continent of Europe, and the other is our imperium, and the source of our authority is our own native source of authority. But temporarily we have given our independence away so as to be submerged in the European Economic Community. But don't worry, that will not last long. It is coming apart. Quite visibly, the British have realized what had been done to them, and are on their muddled, groping sort of way to put it all right again.
Do you mean to get out?
Well, we will probably organize it so that we are invited to leave. A degree of courtesy and a degree of deception are part of a British way of doing things.
The Conservatives are pledged to stay in.
But that is a sign that they intend to come out. When an English politician intends to do one thing, he says that he does not intend to do it. And the more emphatically the Conservative Party proclaims its allegiance to what it so vaguely calls the European idea, the more sure you may be that they are preparing the way for their exit. This is a tip to the foreigner.
At the general election in 1974, you actually advised the voters to vote for the Labour Party.
Well, at that election, it was the Labour Party which was undertaking steps which would be tantamount to the withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the EEC. I therefore said to the electorate, if you take this as seriously as I do, then if you want to use your vote, you know how to use it.
Has the Conservative Party forgiven you for this?
The Conservative Party will forgive anything if it thinks there is advantage for itself in doing so. Some people say that the Conservative Party, if it could get votes by it, would kill its grandmother. This is not true. The truth is that they would kill the old girl and eat her if they thought there was any political advantage in it. After all, that is what political parties exist for, isn't it? To gain votes, to gain power. A secret which has hitherto eluded the political parties in Italy, I notice.
Do you feel that it's at all strange that an Englishman should be the elected representative of Irishmen?
They aren't Irishmen, they're Ulstermen. Ulster is inhabited by Ulstermen. The Irish Republic is inhabited by Irishmen. As for the strangeness of it, it does not appear strange to those who have elected me at 3 successive elections. If that is their pleasure, so be it.
What is your view of the latest Irish government proposals for a solution of Northern
It is
Ireland?
no business of the Irish Republic how the United Kingdom is governed and administered, any more than the government and administration of the Irish Republic, or of Italy for that matter, is our business. People should mind their own business. The world indeed would be a happier and more peaceable place if nations would mind their own business. If, for example, the Americans would mind their own business, or rather not mistake everybody else's business for their own.
What do you see as a solution to the violence and secular hatred that we read about in Northern Ireland?
The violence is maintained by the deliberate arrangements made by the United States and NATO in order to pay what is regarded as the price for the Irish Republic joining NATO, namely the detachment of Ulster from the United Kingdom and its embodiment in a state covering the whole of Ireland. It is a terrorism which is maintained by roughly the same forces as are keeping terrorism at work in Central America.
Are you forever opposed to a unified Ireland?
I'm opposed to it as long as people don't want it. And the people of Northern Ireland want nothing more than to remain what they are, and that is namely British. And that is the wish of a much larger majority than has ever elected a government in the United Kingdom, or in Italy for that matter, where I gather majorities do not support governments. I gather that if you want a government in Italy, you look for a minority. It's a strange way to carry on, but as I say, everyone should mind his own business, and if that is the way in which the Italians like to manage their affairs, then I observe with interest, but with no desire whatsoever, either to interfere or to preach.
In the late 1960s, you made several speeches warning the British public about the dangers of large-scale immigration, coloured immigration, in terms that were much criticized at the time. This led to your being dismissed by Edward Heath, and it also led to a bishop of the church calling the speeches evil.
Because there is an enormous vested interest in the race relations industry, and there is an enormous investment of moral capital. You mentioned the bishop. There is an enormous investment on the part of the press and the establishment in the presence in this country of this intrusive element. It was for that reason that Edward Heath regarded my presence on the Conservative front bench as liable to be an electoral disadvantage. You remember about the grandmother, don't you?
Yes. In hindsight, have you any regrets about what you said or the way in which you said it?
No, the regrets today are on the part of a vast majority of the people of this country that what I said then was not taken note of at the time. That is where the regret is. And there has been a great change in this respect on the continent of Europe. Germany and France today are faced with not the same problem, but a problem of a similar nature to that against which I warned my fellow countrymen when it was still possible to prevent it reaching its present dimensions some 15 years ago. So while there was failure to understand and even incredulity 15 or 16 years ago, there is no such incomprehension now. People say, Enoch was right.
Are you still as pessimistic about the future of the so-called multiracial society in Britain?
I regard it as inevitable that there will be large-scale civil violence in this country, on a scale almost amounting to civil war, as a result of that increase in the proportion of the new Commonwealth population in major cities such as London, Birmingham, and Leicester. It is due to the fact that that population, numbering at the moment 3 million out of 50 million, is overwhelmingly a young population and is therefore bound to double and treble its size over the next generation or so, unless the violent outcome which I foresee has made itself so evident that steps to assist repatriation or onward emigration appear to government and public to be the lesser evil.
Do you see that coming about?
I don't know when. It will, but I do not know when. It is easier to know what will happen than when it will happen. For instance, I know that I shall die, but fortunately I don't know when I shall die. So it is perfectly possible to know that, but not when.
Well, I wish you a very long life, Mr. Powell, and thank you for your views.